I chose to analyze the Halftime in America Chrysler Super Bowl commercial from 2012. This commercial was an advertisement for Chrysler, and it starred the famous actor Clint Eastwood. It used the halftime of the Super Bowl to make a connection with what Eastwood called the halftime of America. He said that the two teams are in the locker room right now, discussing what they're going to do to win the game in the second half. He then tells the audience that Americans too are wondering what they have to do to make a comeback, saying that there are people out of work and that there are people that are hurting. The commercial then puts its focus on the city of Detroit, the Motor City, and how they almost lost everything, and that the people of Detroit know what it means to persevere. This commercial directly correlates to the auto bailout that happened around the same time period, in which the government had to loan out millions of dollars in order to save these American auto companies. He said that America has been facing its hardest times, but despite that, the people rallied together and acted as one. He says, "We find a way through tough times. If we can't find a way, then we make one, and all that matters now is what's ahead. How do we come from behind? How do we come together? And how do we win?" Eastwood ends the commercial with the sentiment that this country can't be knocked out with one punch. The ad is supposed to be a reflection of Chrysler, the motor industry, Detroit, and America as a whole. The visuals include many shots of labor workers in factories, as well as shots of everyday people and children doing everyday activities. It is also accompanied by an orchestra of background music that creates a somber feeling. The auto industry bailout happened from 2008-2009, with this ad airing in early 2012. Chrysler was just trying to bounce back from the crisis and win back the American people. A lot of people speculated that the ad was political because it was airing in the beginning of an election year, with the second half referring to an Obama re-election. People said that Chrysler would support an Obama re-election because he was behind the bailout, and a lot of Americans were not happy with the bailout because it used American taxpayer dollars for millions of dollars to protect the auto companies and to save them from going under. The message uses several different tactics that pushes their goal, which goes beyond just advertising for their country. The auto industry in America has always been threatened by auto industries in other countries and their imports into America, such as Toyota, Volkswagen, Honda, and more. With the financial auto crisis in 2009-2010, it affected other countries as well, but it came down hardest on America. It was ultimately a result of declining auto sales due to the recession and high oil prices. The federal loans that rescued the car companies were backed by taxpayer dollars and led to many Americans being angry and caused the auto industry to face a lot of scrutiny. Chrysler's commercial was narrated as though it was a pump-up speech, like you would see inside of a locker room at the halftime of a football game, which was going on simultaneously as this commercial played. It was aimed to win back the American people, not just to sell cars. Their message exclusively used the pronoun we. They asked a series of questions such as, how do we come from behind? How do we win? This was done on purpose to get Americans feeling like the fate of the country and our industries is on all of us, and that we are part of something bigger. It was a motivator to get people to listen, and by framing it like a pump-up speech, it fit the us against them narrative, and it also captured the competitive spirit that the Super Bowl brings. The beginning of the commercial talks about two teams in the locker room, and then it says that it is now our halftime. We are one of those two teams, but that means that we have an opponent. It also appeals to emotions by showing normal everyday families and children, along with hard-working laborers. It discusses how there's no jobs, and it shows imagery of struggling Americans as a scare tactic, almost as to say that this is the future of our country for all of us, and this is a burden that we are all carrying. The eerie music is accompanied by Eastwood's famous deep voice with the imagery of him walking in a dark alleyway, showing of everyday distressed Americans. It was to instill fear in Americans. This is propaganda because they are creating a dialogue that is to say, if you don't help, this is your future. During an evening that is usually filled with friends, family, celebration, and amusement, this commercial got people to sit down and be quiet because we were all taken aback at the seriousness of the commercial in the midst of what are normally funny or heartfelt commercials. This was an attention grabber, and the spookiness was done on purpose to give it the fear element that works so effectively in motivating people. Having a famous actor in the commercial also helped push the propaganda, because people pay attention to what celebrities have to say, even though Clint Eastwood ultimately has nothing to do with the automotive industry. However, Eastwood did have a famous role in the film Gran Torino, in which he played a character from a tough Detroit neighborhood. This was likely done on purpose to use the entertainment value in order to push their message, since Detroit was the city that was struggling, they related it to Detroit in pop culture. It's highly debated whether or not the ad was meant to be political, due to the content of it matching a lot of Obama's campaign messages. The commercial itself featured screen grabs from political talk shows or political news channels that gives a sense that it was about politics. Obama's message in 2012 was forward, and Clint Eastwood alludes to the whole theme of moving forward when he says that all that matters now is what's ahead, how do we come from behind, how do we come together, and how do we win. This is standard to what Obama was campaigning for, and his whole message of moving forward. It wasn't about the first half of the game, it was about the second half. It was about going forward, not going backwards. Its name, It's Halftime in America, also drew parallels to Ronald Reagan's famous and effective It's Morning in America political campaign, thus furthering the political agenda. The underlying political tone suggests an effort to subconsciously persuade Americans to align with the ideology that they want to promote, which was likely Obama's re-election. Although the Chrysler chairman and CEO denied any political messages, both Democrats, Republicans, and also news outlets in America perceive it as such. With the political feel speaking to America and the government's bailout of Chrysler that upset so many Americans, it's not a stretch to come to this conclusion. The commercial ended with another strong sense of America. The cars were not being imported from Japan or Germany. They were being made right in America, with the slogan used at the end that said, "Imported from Detroit."